This is the thing that is taking away the pain. You're staying home. You
you need a
so
rest.
overdue. Is that him? I thought I gave birth. Blacking out and 10 people just staring at you.
And he's like, oh, okay, she's definitely in labor.
We had a baby.
We had a baby.
We want to tell you the birth story. We vlogged it, but I feel like we're missing details in the vlog.
It's actually quite good.
It was an incredible birth. So I hit my 40 weeks, my due date. I was pretty big already. Honestly, we weren't even wanting our baby to come on the 31st. Like, because
of Halloween.
Don't want my child's birthday to be on Halloween. 31st hit, I was 40 weeks, and I actually vlogged my day that day, like my experience and my thoughts and things like that, in one of my vlogs, my overdue vlog. I was feeling like, okay, yeah, he's gonna come anytime now, right? And then my birthday hit, the 8th of November. That's like 8 days later.
And Bridie pretty much was like comfortable until it hit like that 41 weeks. She was able to like do a lot of stuff, stay on her feet for a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
But as soon as it was like after the due date, she was like a bit unmotivated.
Yeah.
She was like in bed a lot or laying
Not
down.
really. I would do a task and then I'd be like, I need to sit down.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Eating lots of food too. Yep.
I love just eating. Although I had gestational diabetes, so I felt bad for eating sometimes. Yeah. My birthday passed and I was still pregnant. At this point, I was getting lots of messages. People were saying like, how you going? Happy due date. You still haven't given birth. There was like lots of people hanging out for this baby to come.
Yeah. It was like 37 weeks for me, and every single day that I was at work, all of my workmates would be like, oh, he's gonna come today, or like, oh, another weekend's passed. You're still at work? What the heck?
And it felt like everyone was hanging out on me, my body, to deliver this baby. If I called Michael for just some random thing, he would be like, are you okay? Are you in labor? Like, are you feeling anything? And so it was just like this big waiting game. When you start to go overdue, you get a lot of like the medical field people putting a lot of pressure on you to be like, induction sounds nice. And I was like, no, I don't want an induction. And then the max capacity, usually you can go overdue like 1.5 weeks, or maybe if they're kind to you, you can push it to 42 weeks. Obviously you can do whatever you want because it's your birth, it's your body, but they really advise like these certain guidelines.
They honestly make it feel unsafe for you to wait.
They really do. They say maybe your baby won't survive, and like they say these horrible things.
They don't say maybe your baby won't survive, do they?
You didn't go to the appointments. It's pretty rough. It's like, excuse me, don't speak that over my baby. My midwife was like, in the end, just do what you think you need to do. Is your baby moving? Yeah, your baby's moving, so everything's fine. Yeah. So there's lots of pressure at this point.
And Bridie obviously wanted to have a fully natural birth. She wanted no intervention at all.
And if you want to know my prayer points, I made a prayer point list of things we are speaking over the birth. We had a list of 19 prayers, and we sent this list to our friends. We were really bold with the prayers that we were praying. The 8th of November was my birthday.
Yep.
It's now the 10th of November.
Sunday morning.
And we go to church.
Yep.
Michael's like, are you sure you want to go to church?
Yep.
You're like 41 weeks
He had to
plus.
be coming any day now.
And he was like, he could be coming today. Like, sure you don't want to rest? And I was like, no, I want to go to church.
Yep.
And it was really cool that I decided to go to church. The message was literally for me. And it was so encouraging. It just like set me up. It helped me to prepare my mind that day or that afternoon after church. We were doing my maternity leave and your paternal leave. We were entering in the estimated date that we think the baby would be born.
Yeah.
Because you could put the due date or whatever, but the due date had well and truly passed. And both of us were like, oh yeah, let's put the 11th of November, which was the next day. And I remember thinking like, I reckon he's gonna be born tomorrow. That night we watched the block finale. We enjoyed our night. And then we were like, yeah, okay, we're ready.
We were like watching the block with some of our friends. We had been like going to their place every week.
I said, let's go watch the block with our friends. And Michael was like, you're staying home. You are
need a
so
rest.
overdue.
Yeah.
And then it started storming and we were like, oh, we're definitely not going
Yeah.
out. And I feel like that was an amazing decision.
Yeah.
So we watched the block by ourselves and went to bed. We went to bed at about 10 p.m.
Before we went to bed, we had 2 things that were on our hearts. I especially felt led to just pray over Bridie and be like, okay, I think how we feel and what's on our mind and our heart is like, we have just went through like one of the most hectic periods in our lives, buying a home, setting up our home, like renovating, setting up our room for Micah, doing so many things. We honestly hadn't really chosen a name fully yet. And there are a few things that we were like just undecided on. And so that night I just prayed over Bridie and I was like, Bride's like, we need to really tell your body that 1, you're ready, and that 2, our house is ready, your mind's ready, your body's ready, all of these things. So we prayed.
Because you'll notice in lots of the vlogs before, I was like, I'm not ready, the nursery's not ready.
But that morning we finished after church, we had decided on his name.
Went in the car after church and we were like, okay, this is his name.
Yep, us finishing a lot of things. And Bridie saying, okay, I am ready for...
He got me to say it out loud.
Yep.
He said, Bridie, I need you to say out loud that my body is ready. And I was like, okay, my body is ready. And then we went to sleep. Michael turned over, said good night. I turned over, and as I turned over, I got my pregnancy pillow. I was ready for another sleep, hoping that I wouldn't see my belly in the morning. As I turned over, I felt him move in a way that I had never felt him move before. And I don't know what he did, if he just got more into position, if he got lower.
You didn't tell me.
I didn't tell Michael. I thought, okay, everyone says get rest, and if I tell him that after we prayed that happened, he would not sleep. So I just quietly thought, I wonder if I'm going into labor. And then as I thought that, I started feeling like achy period feels, like as if I'm about to get my period. I woke up 2 hours later with my first contraction at 12. I remember thinking, this is definitely a contraction. It was very mild. It still felt like a period sort of thing. I remember thinking, okay, I've got to sleep. I went to sleep and I woke up 10 minutes later and another one came. And so I started breathing through them. I learnt these breathing techniques through a midwife that I followed online called Bridie Taylor, I think her name is. I was like, okay, let's start my breathing techniques. I've got to practice these before they get more intense. Yeah, Michael was fully asleep. It was in the middle of the night, very quiet. Now that contraction's done, I'm going to go back to sleep. Went back to sleep for another 10 minutes. And so I kept sleeping 10 minutes. And I can't believe that I could have a contraction and then fall right to sleep straight away. So it was really cool because I was actually gaining sleep instead of losing sleep. I woke up and I was like, at what point are you meant to go to the hospital? I have no idea when you're meant to go to the hospital. So I quickly got my phone. I Googled it and I was hoping Michael wouldn't wake up. I Googled, when do you go to the hospital? And it said when they are 1 minute long, 3 minutes apart, and they last for 2 hours. This was still at around 12. I was like, I better track these. So what I would do is I had my phone next to me. I would look at the time. So I tracked it and then I was like, wait, that one lasted 1 minute long, 5 minutes apart. And that kept happening. And I was like, there's no way that I have to go to the hospital right now. That is crazy. And so I kept breathing. I kept doing like the de-stressor breath where you just like breathe in and breathe out basically. And then I went back to sleep and I kept timing it and I timed it for 2 hours. So at this point, I timed it until 2 a.m. And then so I thought, okay, it's now 2:30 a.m. I think I should wake Michael up. They started getting more intense and I couldn't no longer be quiet. I started to have to use a different breathing technique, and this breathing technique is louder. It's called the J breath, and it's where you like breathe in and you moan it out really, really low, and that just like helps your body relax fully and open up. So then I woke up Michael and I was like, hey, this is what's happening.
And I remember just like waking up and being like fully awake straight away, like, oh, what the heck is happening? Like, I was like so impressed and like surprised by God as well, because I was like, the last thing I remember, I prayed for you, and then the next thing I wake up to is that she's giving birth and she's like having contractions, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow, that's amazing. And then I just remember being like, okay, I need to get up and get everything ready. And I was like,
whoa, keep sleeping. No, we need to get sleep. And he was like, but I can't, like I can't sleep. And he
Yep.
tried, but then he just couldn't. And he was like, can I make you breakfast? Can I do this?
Yeah, so I got a few things ready.
Yeah.
And then Bridie was like, okay, let's go back to sleep. At this point, Bridie was feeling some pain. I don't think she like fully had mastered her breathing techniques yet, so she was feeling pain. She was like changing position, sitting on the floor,
I was trying
laying
to
on
get
the
the
floor.
hang of it because you're kind of learning how to go through contractions. You can just like feel all the pain and just like freak out and panic, but I did not want to do that. So I was like using my breathing technique. I tried to find positions that worked well. I did the butterfly position on the floor, and I found that that completely took away the contractions, which I didn't want that. I wanted, and I don't know if it's just because I couldn't feel it and because I was doing a breathing technique and sitting in a good position, so I couldn't feel it anymore. But they were very intense, which is crazy that I couldn't feel them anymore.
You started laying on the ground.
I thought, okay, I want to feel them because I want to track them. Laid on the ground, felt them a bit more that way, but it still was a good pain relief. I really liked laying on the ground instead of the bed, so I laid on my side and I had like a heat pack here and a heat pack back here. I had like 5 pillows to support my belly, to support my head, and so I just kept sleeping.
Yep.
And I kept doing contractions and I kept doing that.
Like 5:30 in the morning. So we probably went, we went back to sleep.
Yeah, that's right. And then
And
you
then
came in and
I
went back
woke
to
up
sleep.
and packed the car.
Right.
Bridie was like, okay, let's call our midwife, because Bridie's contractions were like within 5 minute or 4 minute. They
Yeah,
were
they
like
were-
reducing in time,
Yeah.
but lasting longer.
I think some of them were lasting 2 minutes.
We were like, okay, the guideline says this, but let's just call them and then just see.
Yeah.
And so we called Val, who was our midwife. She pretty much was like asleep because it was still early in the morning, and we
thing.
woke her up, and she was like, okay. I hadn't met her yet. Bridie had met her.
My actual midwife was overseas because I went overdue.
It sounds like you're in a good position, but wait a little bit longer until they're like 3 minutes apart.
Yeah.
And then once they're like...
She said something about having 3 contractions within 10 minutes.
Bridie's contractions weren't like 3 minutes apart, but she was getting like 2 or 3 within 10 minutes. So, and they were lasting long. So I think that was like a big difference maker.
Indicator, yeah.
Then she said, once this happens, you can head to the hospital. Then I called Ellie.
Ellie is our student midwife, which is actually our friend. So we got our friend on board to be our student midwife.
Yeah,
because
she was
she's
amazing.
studying midwifery, which was such a blessing.
She's a Christian as well, so, it was great. She was pretty chill. She honestly was just like, okay, I might be able to go to the hospital and I'll be there for like a period of time, but I do have my exam today, so like, you'll probably not give birth before my exam. She was like, okay, but I'll come back after my exam the next day, and then I'll come
Her
back.
exam was at 5.
Thinking our labour would be quite long.
And I remember hearing Michael doing that call, and I remember being like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening, which is so crazy, because we've called the midwives. It feels like official.
Yeah. We probably waited like another half hour before we went in the car.
Remember we were Googling the traffic?
Yeah.
One of our prayer points was that we would get no traffic, because that was our concern. Because from our house all the way to the city, 30 minutes usually.
I reckon, yeah. Can be like an hour and a half.
Something like that. 7 a.m. at this point.
It was a miracle.
It was literally a 30-minute drive to the hospital.
This is like the best that you can get.
On a Monday morning, on a school day, no traffic. Insane.
Bridie loved the car ride.
Yeah.
It was actually like
It was actually so good. Like, I can't believe how much I loved the car ride. And I remember saying, like, so at this point, we're getting in the car, and I had all my pillows.
Yeah, it was like 5 pillows.
I had heaps of pillows because I knew when I was having a miscarriage last time, the car ride was horrible. But the reason why it was horrible, the space in my back area where the seat is, it was so painful. And I remember thinking, I need to put a pillow there when I go into labor. We're driving at this point. I remember being like, I don't feel much pain. And I was doing my breathing technique because I mastered it at this point, and I kept doing it over and over and over again. And because I kept repeating it, it almost felt like a automatic to keep doing it. It wasn't like exhausting to keep doing it, because I was like, this is the thing that is taking away the pain. And I was so shocked. I knew I prayed for no pain in my labor, and I couldn't believe at this point that I was feeling no pain. I remember saying to Michael, and you had to really concentrate though, but I remember saying to Michael, like, I don't feel any pain. Anytime that I moved slightly, I would feel immense pain. Like I had to fully relax my body. I was in my
She's
own
very
space.
peaceful, yeah.
I knew I couldn't like talk a lot. I needed to really concentrate because the moment that I stopped doing that moaning tone, I could feel just everything. I just remember thinking, am I having contractions? And it got to the point where I wasn't even feeling when the contractions were coming because I wasn't feeling them.
Yeah.
And then I remember being like, okay, let me test to see if they're still happening. And I stopped the moaning for a bit and I could feel them. It was really, really cool.
We drive into the hospital, we stop off. I asked this guy how we're meant to get through the gate. And he looks in the car and he sees Bridie and he's like, oh, okay, she's definitely in labor.
I'm like this.
And he's like, yep, just go up to the gate, talk to the guy, he'll let you in. You can park there for like a little bit of time and then you'll have to move your car. Get Bridie out of the car and she's fine, like she can walk and everything like that.
Yeah,
She's feeling a
I
bit
just
of
had
pain.
to concentrate a lot. I remember holding my heat pack, walking like this.
And at this point, like, she's happy. We're both like, oh, sweet, we'll go straight into a birthing room. Midwives will be there.
Yeah.
But we go through the doors, we find out where to go, and then there's like a lineup. There's like a lineup of women.
No one ever tells you about this.
And there's like a waiting room kind of thing. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the front of the line. And they were like, should probably like wait and line up. And I was like,
labor.
I was like, what the? I thought we would go like straight into a room.
Get rushed into a room or something like that.
And then they pretty much were just like, oh, okay.
She can wait over there.
She can just wait in that room over there. It's like the brightest room ever. Everyone's walking past. And then I talked to the person at the counter and they were just like, oh, who are your midwives? I told them who our midwives were and they were like, okay, they're not here yet, so you're just gonna have to wait for a while. They were like, yep, you should move your car. And then I went back to Bridie and she was just like, she looked terrible.
I was like, you joking me?
She was
I
like,
have to be in
what?
this brightly lit room doing my breathing technique, which is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go move the car. And at this point I was like, oh my gosh, I hope Bridie doesn't get rushed in a room. I hope like I'm gonna be able to find her and everything like that. I parked the car and the car park's like decently far away.
And meanwhile, I'm in this waiting room and I just see this other person sitting across from me. She's pregnant also, but not in labor.
Yeah.
And she's just like chilling and I'm just like sitting on the floor in like the butterfly position. And I'm just like, what the heck is this?
And they definitely didn't think Bridie was close to giving birth. They definitely were like...
because I wasn't really like panicking or anything like that.
She's very calm.
And I was like, but I am feeling contractions.
I got back and I actually saw Ellie walking towards me and she was like, oh, wait, is Bridie okay? And everything like that. And she was like, yep, she's fine. She's been moved to a room where they're just testing to see how much she's progressed.
Ellie met me in the waiting room and I was like, thank goodness, a familiar face.
Yeah.
And she probably was like, Bridie is sitting on the floor. I remember, because we debriefed after, and she said to me, she's like, I just remember seeing you sitting on the floor and being like, yeah, go, like, do whatever you need to do. Like,
and they were just assessing like, okay, is Bridie ready to give birth yet? Or do we need to send her back to progress further? Because her water hadn't broken.
Yeah, so at this point, they can send people home, which is crazy.
Yeah.
You drive all that way in labor and then they can be like, no,
and
you're
that
not
would
ready.
have emotionally crushed Bridie.
That would have.
Yeah.
So we were like, we better be ready. They asked to check you to see how many centimeters you're dilated. And I think it's meant to be 4.5 centimeters or 4 centimeters. I remember the day before my friend said, just telling you, you can decline being checked. It's painful when they check you. And so I remember thinking like, I don't want them to check me because like...
you didn't want to lose what you're already feeling.
And I didn't want to lose my momentum because I was getting momentum and getting contractions and I was progressing what I felt I was progressing.
They needed to check Bridie to see what rooms were available, because if she was ready, then she could go into one of the very few rooms that were left. So apparently a lot of people were giving birth and there was only one room left with the bath. Because Bridie had planned to do a water birth. Okay, you need to kind of like make your decision quick because I want to reserve this room. You don't need to get checked, but if you want to get checked, that's what the hospital's kind of asking me to do.
That's like the protocol.
Yeah, that's what the protocol is.
She felt my tummy and she was feeling my contraction. She felt it and she was like, whoa, like they're like
They're big.
strong contractions. She's like, I think you're ready.
Yeah.
And I was like, in my head, I was like, ooh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I barely feel like any pain. Then she went to the person to ask if we could go into the room, and they approved it.
Yep.
And so then we went in the room.
Well, it was actually like pretty fun and funny. Like Bridie was like feeling a bit of pain as well. But then me, Bridie and Ellie were just like laughing and vlogging and videoing on the way to the room, and it was actually like a good fun memory.
Fun.
But as soon as I like took the camera and started videoing her, she was just like enjoying
I was
herself.
like, hi.
Yeah.
Really glad that you vlogged.
Yeah.
I remember you saying, oh, Bridie will love this later.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god. It's a bit cold out here, huh? Turn the aircon down. Hey, we're talking about your birth, darling. A beautiful, beautiful boy. Yeah, you happy boy. You happy boy.
You tell your story. What's your perspective, huh? Everyone, I was in Mummy's belly, and then I moved, and then I moved a lot and a lot and a lot. And I just tried to crawl my way down. And just crawling and crawling because I was so ready. And I was so hungry. And I was crawling so hard that I did a poo. I did a poo in Mummy. My first poo. And then I was a happy boy ever since I woke up.
So we had to have a break because Micah was making a lot of noise and it would have completely ruined the video. We get into the birthing suite. It's a massive room. Did not realize how big it was going to be. It was like, okay, this is it. This is go time. Get
Set
ready.
up the worship music.
Ended up like moving around to try and find different positions. And they say like the more you move, the more positions you find, the more movement you do, the more the baby's getting like assisted to move down, you know?
Using gravity helps so much.
Something that I really loved was using Michael to help me with like my labouring and like getting him down lower.
I was pretty much standing up straight, and Bridie would be like holding with her arms pretty much on my shoulders.
Like
She'd
this.
just bury her head into me.
I was just like rocking. That was really nice.
So it was very peaceful. It was like very quiet and chill. The music was playing and she was very relaxed. At this point, I feel like she was barely even feeling any pain.
I remember like hearing murmurs of all of you guys. You were like, she's doing so well.
Yep.
Like, and you were trying to whisper and I was like, it's not like I have no ears. Like, I can hear you guys.
Yeah, it was really
funny.
Interesting for me as well because it was like, I thought the whole process was going to be pretty intense. I could just have a chat with Ellie, talk to Bridie, but she didn't really want to be talked to that much, just wanted to focus.
Yeah.
So Bridie was progressing really well, so they were like, Ellie was like, I actually might be able to go to my exam and have this birth done before it. Usually for your first baby, like it takes like 2 days.
They were like, okay, let's check you now if you want to be checked. And they were asking me and I was like, okay. And I was like, my only reservation is that someone said it would hurt. Anyways, I was like, go for it. I kind of want to know like where I'm at. And they checked me and then that's when my mucus plug came out, which is like the plug that like helps the baby stay in, I guess, and the water stay in. I don't know. And so that was really encouraging. It was actually really exciting. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, I remember just thinking, like, this is amazing, like, what my body can do. And so I think she said you were, like, around 4 or 5 centimeters dilated. Like, it was really motivating. I loved it when the midwife said, like, this is the stage you're at. Because I had no gauge of, like, what is good progress and what is not. And
that
so
helped you a lot.
Yeah, that was really encouraging. Honestly, whenever, like, I heard this is going well or like some sort of encouragement, that helped me progress even faster.
For you, it felt like, okay, we're getting closer.
Yeah, you feel like you're getting closer.
Yeah.
So like,
and I'm actually achieving something with the pain and with the work that I'm putting in.
like you're putting in a lot of work.
And then they started filling up the bath.
Yeah. I remember like going in and being like, because people say like hot water is like a nice pain relief.
It was pretty big and deep too, and it like took all the heaviness from you.
Yeah, I remember being like, whoa, I feel light all of a sudden. And that is when I felt the urge to push. And I was like, this is really soon. Like I didn't feel like I was going to feel this sensation to push so early on.
Yeah.
I remember asking them, being like, I'm feeling like an urge to push. Is that right? Like, should I push? And they were like, yeah, if you feel the urge, like, that is right. But if you don't feel an urge, don't push. And you kind of are trying to learn everything.
Yeah.
Like, is this the pushing sensation? Is this just my mind?
The bath was actually very hot.
Oh, yeah. It was so hot.
Because Micah needed to be birthed at a specific temperature.
Was it like 37
It's
degrees?
like 37, 38.
Yeah. I felt uncomfortable because of that. And so they had to put like wet washes on my face that were like really cool.
Yeah,
That was
and
the only
fan
thing
you.
that was helping
Yeah.
me stay in the bath, with the wet washes and them fanning me. If they didn't do that, I would have been like, I'm out of this bath,
Yeah.
because it was too hot for me. And so then I was like, I really want a water birth. And so I was pushing and getting contractions. They were getting closer and closer.
And they use
and
like this little mirror thing.
more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They use like this little mirror thing to see if we could see
Like
his
a head or
his
something.
head.
Yeah.
And
I couldn't see much. My belly was in the way.
yeah, but the progress was like pretty slow in the bath.
Yes.
Like her progress was really rapid before
Outside
the bath.
Yeah.
And then when she got in the bath, it was pretty good for, I would say, like 30 minutes. And
Yeah.
then it took a long time. The next,
Yeah.
you're in the bath for a long amount of time.
What my opinion about water birth, and everyone has different opinions and different experiences, but I feel like it slows things down. That's my opinion. I think it's good to stay in there for a little bit, just to get a bit of pain relief, to progress a bit, and then get out. I think because Micah is a big baby, I knew that because we got scans and measured all the time because I had
Yeah.
gestational diabetes.
It was like 75th percentile, so like...
Yeah, and I remember thinking like, this doesn't make sense being in the water because I need gravity. I reckon if you had a smaller baby, maybe the water would be fine. But I was like, I have a big baby in me. I need gravity. And I kept thinking that, but I didn't want to get out of the bath because it felt so nice to be in there. But then when contractions came and then I wasn't progressing,
Yeah.
I was like, "Ugh, I need to change things up. I
Yeah.
need to get out of this bath. But what happened was, and this is what they said.
Hernia?
Hernia?
Yeah.
Hernia?
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think so.
Like when a baby does a poo inside of you.
Oh, I don't know.
No, that's not a hernia.
Well, yeah. Micah did a poo inside.
Cone.
Don't say anything that you don't know.
We'll put the title here. But when the baby does a poo inside of you, because apparently that can happen because they're quite mature at this point, they're ready to be birthed.
Yeah.
But like it's
it infects
risky.
the water essentially.
It infects
can.
the water, and so if he comes out, I don't know, you could have complications.
Yeah.
So they were like, Bridie, you probably need to get out of the bath.
So Micah's poos were in the bath, pretty much. That's what had happened.
No, I thought that was his poo too. Ellie said that actually was membranes.
Oh, okay. Surely there was some of it that was his
Membranes
poo. Because they said
from
that
me.
straight away.
The colouring was poo.
Yeah.
But the chunky stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The stuff that looked like poo
Yeah,
in the bath
yeah,
was
yeah.
membranes.
Yeah.
And I actually thought it was my own poo. What I was loving before I got in the bath was that I could be in my own world. I could use Michael when I needed Michael, but I just didn't want to be spoken to. I didn't want anyone to talk to me. I didn't want to be touched. Like, not touched, but like, as in they were checking my belly.
The biggest issue that Bridie really had with the water birth and being in the bath is that she actually had to be disrupted every 10 minutes or pretty much after every single contraction. They got the Doppler and they had to check Micah's heart rate to see if it was dropping and to see how he was progressing. Issue was that, like, usually when you're outside of the bath, you can put this little thing on your stomach and it checks their heart rate all the time. But the Doppler is like a manual way for them to be able to check it.
Because I don't think they can have one strapped to you when you're in the bath.
Yeah.
Which they should find a waterproof one, because I hated them coming to me.
Yeah.
Can we check the heart rate? And you're in like your zone. And my midwives are beautiful. They're so lovely. I was scared of them.
Angry at
I was
them.
like, I do not want to be touched.
Yeah.
Because when someone puts something on your belly while you're having a contraction, or like when you're about to have a contraction, because they get closer and closer, they take a long time to do it. If it took a couple seconds, fine. But they're trying to find him. They're taking forever, and it's breaking my concentration. It's making me feel pain because
This is
I'm
when
not.
Bridie really felt pain.
Yeah, because I'm not doing my breathing technique properly, because they're interrupting me. From that happening and then him doing a poo internally in me. Oh, I forgot to say, my water broke.
Yeah,
My
that was
water
prior
broke
to getting in the bath.
before the bath.
Yeah.
It was only a little bit, a little trickle. And then when I was in the bath, my water absolutely spurted out. It felt like, I was like, is that him? I thought I gave birth. But it was just my water breaking.
They said, well, since Micah's done a poo inside of you and the bathwater's getting pretty dirty, what we actually have to do is call in a doctor so that they can tell you that you should probably get out of the bath.
So basically they were saying, Bridie, you're being difficult and not getting out of the bath because I kept declining or not even saying anything. Yeah, and they kept letting me be in the bath and I kept pushing and trying and I just wanted to birth him in the water. So then I got out of the bath and I suddenly felt like, okay, I thought in my head, like, I need gravity. This is it. This is how I'm going to give birth.
And you felt it straight away getting out.
Yeah, I was like, oof, yeah, this baby's going to come.
Literally at this point, Bridie had no muscles left.
Yeah, so they had to help me out of the bath.
As soon as she got out of the bath, she was like,
the
gravity
reason
hit
being
you like
is
crazy.
because the baby is so low. It's so heavy. It's because you're like in a buoyant bath and you get out and you're like, whoa, and you just feel the baby so low. It was really cool because you can kind of feel like where the baby is sort of thing. And so I went in the shower because I remember my sister saying, oh, like if you want water but like to be able to stand, just have a shower of you.
Yeah.
I remember trying that and being like, nah, this is not it. I got out of the shower kind of like
this is the most intense part for me.
Yeah, I felt kind of frustrated because I kept getting interrupted and in my head I was like, I just need to find a position I like. Because I was maybe frustrated or whatever, I was holding my breath. I wasn't breathing as much.
They needed to check Bridie with the Doppler. They checked her with the Doppler because they were like, we haven't checked him in a while and we really need to check him. And they checked him and they were like, oh my gosh, his heart rate has dropped quickly. And they got a doctor in and they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put this strap on you, which is going to track his heart rate, give you a more accurate reading than finding him on the Doppler. So they put the strap on Bridie and they were like, oh, he's actually okay. But at that time, or at that point in time, we were like, oh my gosh, his heart rate's dropping.
Yeah. So it was very quick. Like his heart rate dropped and it came back up.
It was almost like you might need to get your baby out really quickly so that like everything's
he's
okay.
Sort of thing. I remember hearing them saying, oh, the baby doesn't have enough oxygen. And I remember thinking back in pregnancy, when you breathe, the baby gets oxygen. And I was like, oh, if the baby needs oxygen, why don't I just breathe? And I remember thinking that, and so I just did deep breaths, and then they're like, oh, his heart rate's great now.
Bridie had been holding her breath. That's pretty much what had happened.
Yeah.
Once she started breathing, they were like, oh, he's perfectly fine and happy and healthy.
Yeah.
And the doctor came in, went out, and then she was like, okay, great.
You're all good.
Yeah, literally Bridie found her favourite birthing position that was just great for her.
They were saying after the doctor came, Bridie, you need to go to the bed. And I was like, in my head, I was like, why are you telling me to go to the bed now? I don't know.
I think they just wanted to try another position.
But I remember thinking like, okay, you're telling me to walk to the bed, but I'm going to give birth while I'm walking because I do not want to lay down and give birth. We started walking and in my head I was like, I'm definitely going to push him out before I get to the bed because I do not want to give birth on the bed.
From this point, I was like holding Bridie behind her body. She like pretty much wanted to stand and then squat. Bridie was doing like full squats, squatting to the ground.
Yeah. So every contraction, we would both squat and go boom like this.
And like my knees were shaking. And
yeah.
It was like the floor was all wet, so it was like really hard to carry her.
Yeah, because this is close to the shower, so the floor was wet.
And she was just like putting her whole weight on me, and I was like, oh my gosh.
He was so low. 'Cause I had one contraction, squatted, and then walked a little bit further, one contraction, squatted, and then they were like, oh, he's coming, and they're like, we can see his head, and they had the mirror. They're like, Bridie, can you see his head? And I remember just being like, well, I can see his my belly, but then I ended up seeing part of his head, which is just a bunch of hair. I remember them being like, Bridie, he's gonna come, like, push. And that was the first time they told me to push. It wasn't just like me being led to push. In my head, I remember thinking like, if I push now, I might tear. But yeah, I think I just want to get him out. I remember thinking that.
We're both like rushing to get the bed ready because they fully anticipated that
I was going to
Bridie was going to give birth on the bed. So they were like, okay, let's get everything set up there. And so I was just holding Bridie and they were like yelling out, get this guy a chair. Because I was like struggling holding her at this point and my knees were like shaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think they must have rushed back.
Yeah, and they were like, get some towels, get a compress.
He's coming.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, he's actually gonna come. When I hear the midwives being like rushed, I'm like, oh, this is it. And so they were like, Bridie, give it a big push. And he literally shot out. It was insane.
Yeah.
And Ellie got to catch him, which was so cool. And it was just like the craziest thing. Like they just passed me my baby. They put him on my chest and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was just so quick. Like
It was very surreal. Like
I never thought that it would just be like, boom, and then they just like give them to you. And it was just like so like, what the heck?
You wouldn't even remember like walking to the bed or anything like that. You would have just been holding your baby and
I was just holding him and then they tell you to like walk to your bed, but I was just like, it was just the coolest feeling holding the baby that was inside of you, and then suddenly he's out, and then I also looked down and was like, my tummy is gone. Like so bizarre. I just absolutely in awe, and you're just like, wow, like this human being was inside of me and now he's mine. Like he didn't feel like he was mine. He felt like, I don't know, like I had never met him before.
Yeah.
You know?
It was really crazy. When he's born, he's like all purpley, like, and as soon as Bridie started breathing on him, he turned into like a fully normal looking baby.
Yeah, like went from like, he looked like grey.
Yeah, and it was just so sweet seeing him laying on Bridie.
And we've got the most beautiful footage of us just admiring him.
Yeah.
Because one of the midwives picked up the camera. They got footage of us like saying hi to him.
Just like our first interaction. And
our first interaction with him.
As soon as Micah was born, Bridie was just like thinking about Micah and like had completely zoned out from everything.
Yeah.
But it was so intense because Bridie lost a lot of blood during the last part of the birthing process.
Yeah.
So there were so many people who came into the room straight away. It was like probably like 5 to 10 nurses just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Within 30 seconds, it was insane because a doctor came in. He's so loud.
I scared him. He jolted because he didn't know what was coming. I've never scared him before. We got some tears.
Hi. Hi, Micah.
We're just telling your birth story.
Yeah, so like a lot of the nurses came in and then the doctor came in and it was like chaos before the doctor came in. Everyone was moving everywhere. People were like catering to Bridie and stuff like that. And then when the doctor came in, they were like, okay, let's just do a check on what everyone's doing. And then everyone just like stopped and it was like, it went from like chaos to like just suddenly everyone fell in line and she was just like, okay, I need you to do this, you do this, you do this. Everyone started doing exactly what they needed. And Bridie had lost a lot of blood, so it was...
Are you smiling at your daddy? Just to check everything that you are okay, and because they just need to check that the placenta didn't rupture or whatever. I ended up being okay, and I had to give birth to my placenta after, which is something that you kind of forget about. Everyone forgets that you have two things to give birth to.
It's enormous.
But you get a window of time of like maybe like 20 minutes where you get to hold your baby, and then you keep holding your baby, and then you birth the placenta after. Something I didn't know, you get like after birth contractions. They're really minor. There's so much that changed. Your stomach grew out to here. You opened up to get a baby out, so you need contractions to contract back. And then my mum came, your mum came, and they said hi to Micah.
And Micah was so happy.
They took several photos. They got to come when I was in the birthing suite still.
He was such a big boy.
So big.
And
they
very
were like,
strong from the moment he was born.
They were like, your baby's big. He's got a massive head. His head was it 37 centimeters? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
And he was 56 centimeters long.
3.9 kilos. I got to cut the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to change his pooey butt.
His poo was all over me, all over him. As soon as he came out, he was lifting his head up. We were just so shocked how strong his head is. He's a very fully overdue developed baby.
And the happiest boy ever.
We love him so, so much.
Yeah.
Oh, the next day I fainted in the shower.
It was so intense.
And then everyone rushed in again. The same doctor came again, but the next day.
It's like Bridie actually fully fainted while she was in the shower. I was there with her because of the heat and because she had such a rough night.
Yeah, my roommate was not very good.
She had lost so much blood.
Yeah.
She hadn't had food, and so she fainted. And I was like,
did the two blood tests from me even before Michael came back, because Michael had to go home. He wasn't allowed to stay there. They did 2 blood tests, and then they were like, "Oh, go have a shower." First time me getting out of bed, walking. Had not eaten yet. For some reason, the lady was gonna order my food, but she didn't order it. But luckily, Michael caught my head. I was sitting in a chair, so it wasn't that bad. But it was the weirdest thing, just like completely blacking out, and then 10 people just staring at you, being like, "Bridie, Bridie, breathe, breathe." And I was like, in my head, I was like, I am struggling to breathe. I'm struggling to breathe. It was just so bizarre. And then I remember just absolutely crying in such shock. All I wanted to know was, where is my baby? That's the first thing I said. I was like, where's my baby? Thanks for listening.
I hope like this is a good positive birth story for you.
Yeah.
There was like obviously a little complication, which is super normal, but I wouldn't say Bridie feels scared.
To give birth again?
Yeah, for a next birth or anything.
Actually, I feel more prepared and more excited because now I know what I like. See you guys!